is the Business of Esports podcast.
The fastest growing entertainment phenomenon of this generation.
Hi, Prophet of Esports, joined today by my friend and co-host William Collis.
Yeah, we got the Book of Esports out. It's a big deal.
So everyone knows me as the Prophet and William as the Professor. As the Prophet of Esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports after show live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Lindsay the Boss Poss, Jeff the Juice Cohen. That's right, the nicknames are sticking, at least well, for a second episode. For those of you who are new to the after show live stream, what we do here is we cover all the important gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but it's all the stuff that we couldn't fit into the podcast. And best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to challenge us. You get to ask questions. You get to get in our faces. That is what makes the live stream special. If you're a regular here, thank you for coming back every week. Thank you for telling your friends about the live stream. If you haven't already, go do that. The more of you in here, the merrier, the more fun it is, the more we get to interact. And so we thank you for telling your friends about the live stream and bringing them here. How are you guys doing? Lindsay, Jeff?
Good. It's been a good week.
Very good.
Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No. Hey, Sam. And thanks for being here, even though you got to wake up early. Not sure wonder where you are. It's not that late here. But I'm excited. There's so much. I actually don't know the topics we're going to talk about. Paul does a ton of prep. He doesn't tell us in advance. I know him and William for the podcast do a lot more prep. For the live stream, we kind of like to be surprised with the topics, which I think is more fun. But there's so many good topics this week that I hope we hit on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will, as always, and there's William, speak of the devil.
I made it. Yeah, just fixing my hair.
Just rolled out of bed, I see.
Just pulled his finger out of the socket, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Lindsay, I love the nickname.
There you go.
What about me?
Yeah.
Lindsay the Boss Poss. That sounds great.
The juice? No love for the juice?
No.
Oh my goodness.
I think you might want to. I think you might want to rethink that one, Jeff. Like I
didn't think of it. The mastermind thought of it.
It's already better than it once was, William.
It got rave reviews last week. Rave reviews.
We had there was a couple other contenders, none of which were better. But we're still worried. It's a word. It's always, it's beta. Everything's in beta.
I'm just impressed at how the quality standard of the live stream has upped too. Like everyone has nice backgrounds now. The audio quality's sharp. Like what's happened to us?
I will say, guys, we had, as always, let me start with a little bit about the podcast this week. Had a great guest on the podcast, Jimmy Barada, who's a good friend of mine, an advisor to many companies in the esports space, also an investor in Xset. And so had a lot. Oh, and by the way, he teaches esports at University of California, Irvine. So also a professor of esports. And a great conversation there. I will just tease some of the topics that we did cover. We started with a discussion. And by the way, we can talk about any of these if you want. If you have any thoughts, any questions on these. See, Kenneth says the juice. There you go, the juice. And so the first topic that we did discuss on the podcast was Riot basically recording all of your voice communications. And according to them, they will be used to figure out if you're being toxic or not, essentially. And so they can ban people who are harassing, bullying, being toxic, spewing hate speech. And but all of your voice communications in Valorant will be recorded. So that was the first thing we touched on the podcast. And then we had a trio of stories from Sony, namely Sony integrating Discord chat in PlayStation Network. That was the first one. The second one was, this one never works for some reason. The second one was Sony preventing Resident Evil Village from being on Xbox Game Pass. So they will have an Xbox version of the game, but not on Game Pass. It's specifically laid out supposedly in the contract. And then the third story about Sony was Sony literally making Epic Games pay for Fortnite crossplay. In other words, if you play Fortnite on your PlayStation, but you buy most of your skins on your iPhone, Epic actually had to pay Sony essentially a cut of those purchases. So they got their piece of meat no matter where you purchased. As long as you were playing on PlayStation, they wanted to get a piece of the action. So those were the three Sony stories and the Riot story. That's what was on the podcast, or that's what you can expect on the podcast tomorrow. Jeff, you had a thought or a comment there?
I always have comments. What did people think about the Epic? Because I thought the cross-platform, I mean, that's something I think we all suspected, because Sony was kind of the last holdout, and the narrative was that Fortnite kind of strong-armed Sony into finally giving in and doing crossplay, which I guess seems that was the case, but obviously that strong-arming was with cash.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, like, it doesn't seem that unreasonable, right? Like if someone is playing on only on Sony, and Sony's not getting the actual revenue and the monetization because most of the payments is being done on a different system, like, to me that doesn't seem that outrageous, given Sony's paying a lot of the costs to host that player.
I mean, it sets, I think a lot of the discussion we had on the podcast was, does this set, I'll use the word dangerous, but a dangerous precedent where now any game developer that wants crossplay is going to have to pay every platform, right? Like, why, if you're Microsoft now and you just learned of this, why wouldn't you get paid too for crossplay support? Right? Do you not worry about that precedent? Is the question.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I guess the second question: do you think that this was news to Microsoft? Like, I have to imagine that this was known in the industry.
That's
right?
what I said. That's what I said. And everyone was like, no, it was news to Microsoft. Everyone was like, it was news.
It might have been news to like us as outsiders who like suspected it but didn't know. Like, I have to imagine, like, you don't think there's any competitive intelligence? Like, no one at Epic or Sony like talks at events at E3, like, to their buddies. And
that point got lost in the podcast, but I sort of said that and everyone poo-pooed it. But I feel like this is happening in other places too, and we're just seeing it here for the first time.
Okay, but like, to me, there's only two possible scenarios. It's Microsoft knew about it and you didn't hear about it because they were also getting paid already, right? Or Microsoft didn't know about it and now they're going to want to get paid. But I don't think there's a scenario where they knew about it and they're going, no, we're okay not getting paid. Just Sony can get paid.
But the scenario could be they didn't have the leverage, right? Like, remember, Microsoft probably needed crossplay more than Sony did because they were behind in install base. Like, they've also been all about open, platform.
Yeah, they also might have more PC crossover. A lot of their stuff might be built on the common Microsoft. So maybe that's an interesting point too, that they might want it, but the leverage point for them is less. Or rather, like, they can't bluff as effectively as Sony, because Sony can be like, haha, are you kidding? We hate crossplay. So you have to do everything we want, or we're never going to have it. Whereas Microsoft is probably the opposite. They're like, we really need crossplay, but we're going to try to charge you for it, Kenneth says, Sony also resurrected PlayStation Home, wondering if that may be tied in with Discord. The Discord conversation, Kenneth, was also interesting. So definitely tune in tomorrow, the podcast on that. I mean, like I said, happy to discuss in more detail here if you guys have specific thoughts or questions.
I'm curious to hear. I mean, I guess just a quick snippet about Discord. I mean, this was surprising to me, right? Like, I think we, we had talked a lot about the rumors that Microsoft was going to buy Discord. Microsoft has way deeper pockets than Sony. We all think that this is a really strategic asset. So why did Microsoft let it kind of leave the coop or fly the coop? I have my kind of tinfoil hat theory that I could share after, if you guys have any thoughts, or I could share it now.
Yeah, put it out there.
I don't want it to make so much suspense.
Well,
but
you can't say I have my own tinfoil hat theory.
I have a theory. I didn't mean to build. I ended up building.
Well, if anyone wants to hear it, I mean, I'm just saying
more than I maybe thought. So my theory before I lose my train of thought was that Discord, the founders of Discord, want to be a gaming app, and Microsoft was looking at them as a productivity software app, and they were going to get bought by Microsoft. And it was like, okay, you guys are going to be in this division reporting to the head of Microsoft Office or Microsoft Teams, and you're going to build out a whole productivity software. You're going to try to be the new Slack. And they said, whoa, we're gamers. We thought we were going to be Microsoft. We thought we were going to be like in your gaming division. Let's go with Sony. That's my tinfoil.
No. That theory doesn't pan out because the groups that are acquiring you would know way. It's not like you show up and it's not like you know what it's sort of like. It's like the first job out of college scenario where you show up and you're like, so where's my desk? And you're like, oh, I'm working in this. They would have known where they were going to go on with it. It would have been foundational to the conversations from day one. It's not like they would have met their new boss, the head of the Microsoft products group, the first day they came in. So.
No, obviously not as specific as that, but it could have been something that, became more apparent as they were having more conversations, or just something they decided in turn, they were initially open to it, and then Sony came in, and it was like, okay, well, now we have our gaming option. I don't know. Otherwise, do you think Microsoft just dropped the ball? It seems
here's
like
another
it was just
thing.
the price. I think it was just a price thing, personally. That the price was too low and they were too far apart.
So then why take?
I don't think it's any more complicated than that, in my view.
So Sony outbid Microsoft effectively.
But they didn't outbid. So just to be clear, all they did was invest. They own a minority stake. We don't even know how big that investment is or that minority stake is. And so, if they took a few $100 million from Sony in exchange for a small percentage of the company, and they could have raised it at a high valuation, right? It doesn't change. That's a totally different conversation than acquiring the entire business. I think a big part of the conversation we had on the podcast was, what are Discord's true ambitions, right? Do you want to be a destination where people go and use you as the de facto sort of tool for voice communication and video for gamers, right? Or do you want to be like the operating system for voice communication and be embedded everywhere? And I think it's easy to look at the PlayStation deal and go, well, maybe they want to be embedded everywhere. This is one of many deals they might do like this. Or you could say, this is a one-off, and they're doing this just because, to Greg's point here, they want that $30 billion gaming valuation, and the more users they can show, the better. And this PlayStation deal gets them more users, right? The number's going to be bigger in that S1. And I think that $30 billion valuation after this Sony announcement is just looking, I'm going to be prophetic here, is looking more and more likely. I don't know if you feel differently, guys. Chris says, Sony, just another celebrity owner with minimal control. You
think Microsoft was not involved, would not have been interested in a minority investment? Because again, they could have done the same thing.
Yeah, the question is, if they didn't approach it that way, that it may have soured the conversation overall, right? If Microsoft approached them and said, hey guys, we'll give you $10 billion, and Discord says, no, we're worth 25, right? Microsoft's not going to be like, okay, forget that. Let's just invest then, right? The conversation and the relationship may have soured as a consequence of the deal falling apart. I think there's too many things we don't know. Or we may go see Discord turn around and do a Sony type integration with Xbox next week. That's possible too. We don't know. Part of the conversation is how likely do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I suppose accepting only one investor in a small portion of it leaves them a lot more open to developing other partnerships than an entire deal with Microsoft. So
There you go.
maybe
It's true.
they're more interested in just continuing to do their own thing, and not even the distinction between gaming versus non-gaming and productivity. That might not be as important as just Discord having the flexibility to do what it wants to do.
Okay, guys, let's you want to jump into some news this week?
Love news. Let's do news.
Let's talk about Epic. So Epic Apple in the news. By the way, did anyone tune in for their the first day where they I think they're still continuing to live stream the proceedings. And
Are you talking about the first 20 minutes when they couldn't figure out how to mute
so
the audience?
It was like a Zoom call, but they didn't mute the audience, so everyone was just putting in their 2 cents, like hardcore thoughts and opinions that people were just screaming out into this. Free, people yelling free Fortnite. So it was not the most professional start to these legal proceedings, but a ton of information has emerged as a consequence of this. So I don't really care, unless you guys really want to, don't really care about talking about the lawsuit itself. What's more interesting is what has emerged, the information that has emerged from this lawsuit. And Matthew Ball on Twitter reported a few of the things, namely, and I'll bring this up here. Hopefully this works because this has been pretty finicky. I don't know if you guys can see this, but why did Epic Games' profit fall short of plan of record in 2019? And this document that was disclosed in this lawsuit reveals 2 causes. One, cancellation of Winter Battle Pass, $322 million, and cause number 2, overestimated esports opportunity, cost of $154 million. I'm just curious in general to get your reactions to this, guys, in terms of these 2 causes that have come out in terms of Epic Games falling short of their plan. Is anything surprising in here? The numbers, the causes.
Paul has legally paid me to say the prophet was right about Fortnite esports. So
2018, folks. 2018.
The prophet
I
called
wrote a
this
blog post
long ago. What's surprising to me, these are EBITDA numbers, right? So not even revenue numbers. So they thought they were going to make, I assume they lost money, but they thought they were clearly going to be making positive, bottom line contribution from esports. That's pretty surprising. And to be off by that magnitude, $154 million on the bottom line, you have to be off by multiples of that, I would imagine, on the top line, which means that they really, really dramatically overestimated, the esports opportunity, or I guess just overspent on some of the events. Maybe if they're including, how big was the Fortnite World Cup prize in that?
40 million.
40 million. So maybe that's,
like that.
I guess that's probably how you overestimate by 150 million. You give away 50 million, but yeah, I mean, that's a big number. So
You're a good guy, Jeff.
Is anyone surprised that the Winter Battle Pass canceling that results in $322 million?
Wait, why did they cancel the Winter Battle Pass again? Can somebody remind me about that?
I saw somewhere that they made a battle pass free to combat Apex Legends. So there was a battle pass right around the launch of Apex or something like that, where they basically made it free because
that's
Apex
also crazy because it doesn't feel like they got $332 million worth of value from that. That's a movie. They could have made a AAA Fortnite movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Am I right? Am I right?
No,
they could have done that.
But I don't know if I would agree with that assessment, right? If you're a free-to-play game, the most important thing is engagement. So if you lose your players, you're basically screwed. But so if that kept their players going, you'd have to see the financials the rest of the way. But if they were able to theoretically keep someone and then they bought the next 2 battle passes, that's a pretty good investment. One of the things that I thought also from the numbers was holy crap, Fortnite was way bigger than I thought. Obviously we all knew it was massive and like the biggest game out there, but $9 billion in revenue in 2 years, like
Yeah,
that is way higher than I think the third party, and like I thought I would have guessed like, 3 to 5 billion. Like it was multiples bigger than I think people thought, or at least I thought. I don't know if you guys had a different perception.
Julia has a question here, and Julia, thank you for coming, by the way. Says, is it because they started doing the Fortnite crew memberships? I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. Do you know? I don't actually.
What's a Fortnite
the
crew
revenue
membership?
loss? Is she talking about is part of the revenue loss because of the crew memberships? Is that the question?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And are the crew? What are the crew? Yeah, what is a crew membership?
I don't actually. Let me just while we're waiting for Julia to come back on that, I just want to show you one other thing here, which is this other little tidbit that came out. I don't know if this is. It's not going to let me. I will just say it's another little tidbit that came out here, which was only if they looked at one of the things that came out about the Epic Game Store was that only 7% of people who acquired a free game on the Epic Game Store, only 7% became what they call payers. In other words, then purchased another game other than the free game that they got. Is anyone's like, because we had this discussion, right? The value of all the hundreds of millions being invested in the Epic Game Store. Does anyone think now, with that statistic, that maybe the 600 million, whatever that they've lost on the Epic Game Store, is not an investment that's looking like it's paying off here?
The only issue is you have to do it somehow. I don't necessarily think that free games was a winning strategy, but you had to pay to get people on the platform somehow. I don't think they picked the right way of doing this, especially since they gave away such good games that there just wasn't like when you give away Civ 6, you're going to get a lot of people who want to play Civ 6 and Civ 6 only. It was just a big deal. Go ahead.
I mean, we don't have. It's hard to answer this question without all the numbers, right? So, because we don't know what the lifetime value.
I just did.
There you go. We don't know. We don't know.
Lindsay, that was aggressive. I love the way it's like Civ 6, of course.
we don't have the lifetime value, right, of these customers they're acquiring. So, just saying 7% converted to premium, like this is effectively a freemium funnel, right? So, that's no different than saying, oh my God, like only actually it's probably less, like 5% of people who download Candy Crush, like actually pay money. Like it must be a terrible business when you're paying to acquire all those players.
The one you can quickly compare it to that just happened though was that Quibi lost 91% of its subscribers after the free trial ended. I mean, that's what pops up in my mind. Obviously, well, actually, they did worse than Quibi because Quibi kept 9% after the free trial ended. And that's just like a raw number. But I would think anything, when you're talking about retaining less than 1/10 of users, or converting rather, less than 1/10 of users, that's pretty iffy.
Yeah, it's one of these things. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, you go, Paul. You go.
I was just going to say, it's a little bit different in the sense that if you got the free game, right, you still have to come back to play the free game. So they continuously have more chances, I guess, to hook you as a payer, like they call it. It's one of those things where the number, given the size of the investment, seems low to me, sort of confirms my initial belief, which is this was a bad investment. And you could argue it's more long-term than this. We haven't had enough time. The long-term value of that 7% might be very high. Like you could make that argument, and I understand that argument. I just think fundamentally the sheer size of the giveaway and the freebies should have probably resulted in more, in my opinion, for me to feel good about this.
So I'd have to look up this number to be sure, but I thought I saw a number that said like the amount of like users they acquired, they paid like $2.50 per user. Like just if I threw that number at you, you'd be like, well, that's pretty good, right? Like if I told you Epic would acquire 10 million users for their store at a price of $2.50 a user or whatever the math is, like that to me seems like they'd probably take that in a heartbeat. wouldn't
But
they?
then when you look at scalability of the size that they created and the amount that they were able to retain, I don't think it makes as much sense. Like if you're talking about, I thought we were talking about like a lot more users than 10 million. I don't remember now because I remember the $2. It was like $2.62 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that was
But
the
then
number
if you,
I saw.
yeah,
The 10 million might have been wrong. The 260.
No, I know, and I can't remember what it was either. And I thought it was much larger than that. But then if you have, like, I don't know exactly how to explain this, but with more organic growth, you would expect to retain more people. And this is obviously not organic growth, it's paid growth. But given that so few of the paid growth subscribers were able to see the organic value in it, it's concerning. I don't know if you're following, but
I do follow. I just, again, I think without knowing, because let's say 7%, those 7% stuck around and this was their main store. Like you will make, I mean, Valve is literally a money printing machine, right? Whoa, we got two balls. It's freaky. That's just too much intelligence here.
I actually thought that was kind of cool. I thought Paul was like he'd cloned himself and he was unveiling it live on the podcast. He's like,
that would be news.
okay. So a quick Google search. A quick Google search says 180 million.
Yeah,
just so you know, to further refine your point.
So they got 180 million people. 7% became paid.
This is the top result.
So if those 7%, I mean, you're talking about 14 million people stuck around and bought another game. Like, what if those 14 million people make this their main store? Like, that is a massive opportunity. You could make hundreds of millions in revenue off that in perpetuity and lifetime value.
But there's also a strong assumption there, which is they make it their main store. And I suspect, and this is again, I'm really like overreaching here, but I suspect a lot of people who convert from that are just buying the Epic Store exclusive titles, right? Like just not to be, negative Nancy here or whatever phrase you want to use, but like, I feel like a lot of people download the freebie, see that Control, which was a critically acclaimed game, was only available in the Epic Store. They already have it anyway. They buy it there. That's not really an effective, that I'm sure they're counted in the upgraded user category, but they weren't really an upgraded user. You're right. The goal is the real valuable users are the ones that do what you're describing. They say, I'm done with Steam. This is my main port of call. I'm going to be buying every game I get from here on out here. But I suspect that is a much harder conversion to achieve, and it's certainly not what's being measured or what seems to be being measured in their number.
Guys,
but I guess the point would be, not to belabor the point, but wouldn't it be like you have to build that habit? So it's like the strategy, like literally day one, we said the strategy.
I have your nickname, Jeff the apologist Cohen. He's
like,
just gonna.
But I'm saying, like, isn't this exactly what you would expect in order?
Jeff
like
Fortnite Store Cohen.
We've said all along, like, Steam was an incredibly tough competitor to beat. It would be very hard to beat them. But if you did, you'd literally have a license to print money because that's basically what Valve has. So what they did was they gave away a bunch of free games. It cost a lot of money. Then they bought exclusives, which kept people in the ecosystem. Over time, as Paul has said, they need to make their platform actually better than Steam so people stick around. But in theory, if they can do that, they build the habit and they continue spinning the flywheel with good exclusive games. Like, I don't know, wouldn't this be exactly if you wanted to beat Steam, wouldn't this be exactly what you had to do?
That's
like
it
will work, but like this is the only strategy
that sounds like something I would say, and I do actually I agree with you, Jeff. All joking aside, I think you're right. This is not like they didn't launch this thinking this was going to be a 2-week fight and then they'd win, right? They launched this recognizing this was a protracted multi-year investment where it was going to be gradually inculcating a player base, and they probably were smart enough to, I'd say, to recognize that acquiring a user versus converting to this habitual hyper user was going to occur in many stages too. So you're right. Like, I agree with that. It's tough because we're at the point in the war that they've chosen to fight where, they haven't won yet, right? But they have experienced a lot of the losses. And, this is where the conviction moment kicks in, because you're right. I do think success looks a lot like failure for quite a while, which is certainly why Epic is prepared to stick with these metrics for, the foreseeable future, it seems like.
To be honest, it's easier to have conviction when Fortnite's generating like $4.5 billion a year of revenue, right? Like,
that's right,
it's a little easier to give away hundreds of millions of dollars of free games when you have this cash cow printing money in the background. Anyways, guys, I want to move on from this. I just want to read a couple of these. Julia says the monthly memberships, $11.99. This is how disconnected from Fortnite I am. I didn't even know Fortnite had a monthly membership. I don't think that was the reason why they canceled that specific battle pass. But guys, the question I don't think we addressed is, how did they so wildly overestimate the esports revenue? Like, how did Epic get that so wrong? And again, is it a lack of self-awareness there? I just think about that for a second. I just want to read these comments and then we'll come to that. Zev says, the juice just got here. We still going with that, Zev?
Sup, Zev? How you doing?
We are, Zev. Of course we are. Sam says, double the profits. There you go. Army Pathfinder. We talking Apple versus Epic this week? Army, we are. But not, you're right, not technically Epic versus Apple, just the findings, the learnings that have come out from the Epic Apple lawsuit. Chris says, I think agreeing here with Jeff, Epic still drawing in younger players. Tomorrow's hardcore gamers were not old enough to stand Steam. I think that is a good point. That is a good point. That is one of the openings that Epic has here. Any thoughts on the esports front, guys, before I move to the final learning? Or do you want me to give you the final learning from the lawsuit here?
You're muted, but Paul, I want to
give
hear
us
your
the final learning.
I want to
Yeah,
hear
give
you
us
were right.
more.
You were right initially, so I want to hear your thoughts on why they failed.
I mean, because Fortnite was never set up to be an esport. Like, you can't have a third player shooter that changes meta every single week, like, be a successful esport. It was never going to work as a competitive game. And it always was clear to me in the way Epic executed on Fortnite esports that this was a marketing play, right? This was, how do we get people excited about Fortnite, playing Fortnite and buying new skins? This was not, we want to foster a competitive scene and support the top players. And right, like, there was nothing in the way of building out a long-term sustainable esport. This was all flash and sizzle and let's get excited, rah, Fortnite. And so it's a great marketing play, but for some reason they just didn't admit to themselves that it was a great marketing play. Someone there was sufficiently delusional that they thought it was going to do 150 million of EBITDA, which is, like, to Jeff's point, like, we're talking at $500 million of revenue at least, most likely. So Sam says Fortnite esports is such a terrible viewer experience. It's probably a worse player experience too, for a lot of reasons. The last learning, guys, that came out of the Epic Apple lawsuit, this one really interesting, and I'm going to tie it to another story. But we've got here Walmart's unannounced cloud gaming service detailed in confidential Epic emails. Project Storm, as Walmart called it, was being worked on in 2019. So coming out of these emails that are, part of this lawsuit is that Walmart was demoing on an Android phone essentially Fortnite playing, like, over the cloud. So through their cloud service. Anyone have thoughts on Walmart getting into the cloud gaming business?
I don't have thoughts. Well, I do have thoughts, but I'll let someone else go first. But I don't think this was sort of known, right? Like, it wasn't like news that Walmart was looking at this. I don't think, right?
I mean, we've had multiple podcast episodes where we talked about Walmart looking at the gaming space. If you guys remember, at one point, Walmart said they were going to convert some section of their stores to, like, little, not LAN centers, but like mini esports arenas, like where people could hold tournaments inside the Walmart and people would come watch the tournaments inside the Walmarts. So like they've been on the edges of gaming and esports. Like, I think they've been trying. It's the first I think I had heard of serious and functioning cloud gaming service. Like, they were demoing this. Someone was using it. This is not like pie in the sky, we're thinking about it. They built this.
I mean, the first thing I want to point out is there clearly seems to have been something in the water when all these cloud gaming projects started around the same time. right? Like, I mean, it's like quite seriously, like there must have been some conference or some, like that, like everybody came home from was like, wow, we got to, because like everybody started cloud gaming service development. It feels like in the same 1 to 2 year window.
McKinsey probably
right?
wrote a white paper or something.
That's right. McKinsey Research Institute says cloud gaming is awesome. Like Tyler really wants it. It's just weird to me that it all happened at the same time and so many different companies looked at it, like anyway, that's one thing. But then this specifically, I kind of think it's a pity that this service didn't come to market, because I think Walmart is all about cost-effective delivery of goods, right? That's sort of their claim to fame, right? And cloud gaming is, arguably, I think that focus on cost efficiency brought to a cloud gaming service could have mitigated the biggest drawbacks of other cloud gaming services we've seen, like Google's, right? Where it was too expensive, right? Like the whole problem with Google is if it had been an inferior gaming experience, but it had been way cheaper to get it streaming and I didn't need hardware, I think there would have been a market use case there, right? But that was not where Google went. That wasn't the direction. They had it. It was a feature-led product, not a cost reduction product. And I suspect Walmart would have taken this in the cost reduction side, which I think would have been really interesting for the industry and maybe brought gaming to more people.
And William, you're totally right. I'll just say the email that was leaked bears this out. It says that Mark Ryan from Epic Games seemed interested in Walmart's pitch, and they also explored services like Google Stadia and GeForce Now. Ultimately, Epic partnered with NVIDIA to launch Fortnite on GeForce Now. But Mark Ryan from Epic says, Walmart is open to exploring all kinds of business models, but I expect their service will be the least expensive of all of these because they're Walmart and that's their gig. So like the emails bear this out, that even Epic felt like Walmart was going to be the low cost, streaming service.
Which I think where, there is a feature-led world, but I think the low-cost world is probably more where the tech at least had the potential today. I mean, why do you think they canceled it? Like,
what do we think about Greg's question here, William, which is problem with Google wasn't cost, it was latency. And I think that's 100% true. The question is, do you guys think if Stadia, instead of costing, I don't know, whatever, $15 a month, cost $3 a month, would you care so much about latency? Would it attract the kind of customer who cares about latency?
Like, let me...
Lindsay, you have a thought on this?
Yes, because we're, again, launching into the broadband debate. So this story, the first thing that I always think of is I do not have a good handle on who the Walmart customer is. I never have. I've never shopped at Walmart. I don't know many people who do shop at Walmart. I don't have a clear sense. I mean, obviously they're low cost and all of that. I don't have a clear sense of what those people's backgrounds are. What I automatically sort of assume is that they are the type of people who typically live in rural areas, which would mean problems with connectivity. And that comes back to, it might not be a latency problem, it might be a connection problem off the jump, in which case a cloud gaming service, even if it's cheap, even if it's decent, even if it uses Walmart's enormous customer base, is not going to be attractive to the type of customer that is looking for a gaming experience through Walmart. So I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing about how big of a difference broadband makes, but when you have kids who can't physically get on their school Zoom calls with video because their broadband connection is so bad, I don't think that their parents or that their households are going to use a cloud gaming service, even if it's cheap and it comes from Walmart.
But I feel, why do we assume it would be cheap just because it's Walmart? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Walmart doesn't own a massive cloud business, do that? Like I'm pretty sure they use Azure.
Well, in this case, there is specifics in the email.
It says it. That's how we
that
know.
The company Walmart was planning to run this. That Walmart was planning to run the service on something called Liquid Sky, which is a service that Walmart acquired. And Liquid Sky was previously powered by IBM Cloud's bare metal servers and NVIDIA GPUs.
It's a tough road to hoe. I mean, I think in order to win this game, in order to be the Walmart of this business, you need to own your own infrastructure, which is why I think the only person that could have done it was really, I guess, Microsoft, Google, or Amazon, because they have the
Or
hyperscale.
NVIDIA owns the GPUs. All the others
They
had
don't
to
have
buy.
the massive cloud. They don't have like the actual.
But the physical
cloud
hardware
infrastructure.
that the other clouds are running, they're buying it from NVIDIA. Which is why
Fair,
GeForce Now,
but you'd have
I would
to
argue,
build out.
probably.
I mean, you'd have to, like, the amount of capex you'd have to spend if you're NVIDIA to build out the amount of data centers you need would be like $100 billion.
But they did
right?
it. They did it. GeForce
NVIDIA-
Now is
NVIDIA
the
has,
service that Epic selected. And in fact, I think it's the lowest cost of all the streaming, like game streaming services. Because they own the
my
hardware.
second point, besides the cost and the owning their own servers, was, even if that had been the case, it kind of gets back to my typical rant where Walmart knows nothing about games. They don't have a game studio. They have no exclusive content. So they would be a shittier version of Google Stadia.
Well,
right?
that's kind of why I think probably this didn't see the light of day. Is at some point people looked at the strategic resources required to win here, and they're like, "Look, what are we really good at? We're good at building, retail stores, right? And when we've tried to do things like, didn't they do the Jet.com acquisition and then they had to kind of shut it down? Like when we've tried to grow even into adjacent digital product categories like an online store, it's been a real struggle for us. And I do think they ultimately got it working, right? I think like Walmart.com is now quite successful as an online retailer, but I think they probably looked at it and say like, look, this is just so far from our core competencies. Like we sell DVDs and Blu-rays at Walmart, but we're not opening a film production company. This might be one we want to step away from, It's not unusual for companies to try something, look at it, prove it out, and then at that point evaluate the full investment decision and realize it's probably not worth the capital expenditure. They could put it elsewhere.
This is, I think, the point Chris is bringing up in some way, which is maybe there was an ethical decision made knowing the system wasn't going to work. Wouldn't that be nice?
You're talking about Walmart here.
Yeah,
They made
Walmart.
some high-minded ethical decision? Probably not.
It's Pathfinder says, I'm just glad Tim Sweeney showed me how to use a Nintendo Switch. Did you guys see this? Have you seen this?
No.
So during the proceedings, one of the points Epic was trying to make was that gaming on a smartphone on iOS is so much easier than using a console like the Nintendo Switch. So it has this like huge advantage because using a Switch is like very complicated when you're out and about. And to demonstrate this, they gave him a Switch. They gave a Switch to Tim Sweeney, but it seemed like he had actually never used a Switch before. Like he had no knowledge of it. He didn't know how to attach the Joy-Cons.
He's like, this wasn't how we practiced. Like, click.
So I think the whole thing kind of fell flat. He just kind of fumbled with it, and their lawyer sort of just was like, okay, well, let's move on. And he said, well, I'm not a Switch player. But the whole point was that...
But doesn't that prove the point he's trying to make? It's hard to game on a Switch and he has trouble.
No, because you can't make that point unless you also have experience with a Switch.
Oh. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyways, that was an interesting... It's interesting that all of these proceedings are out in the open, too. Like, that to me is fascinating on its own. Let's move on, guys. Let's just do a super quick one on cloud gaming since we're on this. I kind of have to. And this is, on really unfortunate news. Stadia product head John Justice has left Google. So we have the head of Google Stadia's product, like the head of product at Google Stadia. He's left the company. Google has confirmed it. He's no longer there. They wish him well, the whole bit. Again, milestone on the path here to seeing Stadia shut down. Do we think this is like this year at this point? Is that?
Did you guys see the? I guess it was a CD Projekt had an earnings call or like a financial update, and an analyst asked like how many of the the copies of CD Projekt were on the Switch or on Stadia, and they laughed.
Did they sit on the earnings call?
They started laughing, which probably not the greatest look for both Stadia
Oh.
nor CD Projekt Red, but yeah, apparently they like kind of snickered and were like, yeah, like I don't know what they said, but just
Was there a number released or published? Do you know?
no, but I'm guessing it was very low.
That poor analyst who asked the question, they probably think it's a legitimate question. Like, you're not reporting that platform. I want to know more.
Well,
No, I don't
it's a
know,
good
guys, if you
question,
have
but
thoughts
not
on
for
this.
Stadia.
But anyone sort of thinking that this is really starting to look like the end here when you have
Oh yeah.
the head of
I
product
mean,
leaving?
when I saw this article, a bunch of like the laughing, crying face emojis just filled my brain. And I felt bad for how much I wanted to laugh at it at first until I realized that Alphabet is a very large and successful company. They can afford this failure. And then I stopped feeling bad and hope that the guy who left found a great job. And everyone who's working at Stadia finds a great next step.
Leaving now is
in the
probably the
eventual
move,
end.
right? Leaving now is probably the move in the grand scheme of things. When you, especially when, like he more than anyone probably knows the end is coming, and so leaving now is probably the move. All right, that was just an opportunity for me to say I was right about Stadia. So let's move on. Let's talk about Japan. Maybe one of William's favorite gaming subjects here. The headline here: Japan is opening its first ever esports gym in Tokyo, where people can book 3-hour slots at PCs and pay for coaching from professional gamers. It says similar spaces have opened in Singapore and South Korea, and this is the first one in Japan. It will be known as Esports Gym. There's monthly memberships at $50. You can pay $25 an hour. Here's my question to you guys. Is the esports gym term a total misnomer here? Do you guys feel that it's a little bit disingenuous to call this an esports gym when this seems to be more just of a LAN center? Does anyone else feel this way? Or I don't know. Do you guys feel this is a true first?
I totally thought it was going to be like playing games and losing weight, not at all like actually improving upon esports. Totally hoodwinked by the name of it.
Yeah, you would think, Lindsay, right? This would have been all about gamer fitness, like, but you know, specific to like gamer, like William joked on the podcast, like finger strength. You know, like should it just be a bunch of
I
machines?
didn't even think that. I thought it was like you play games to lose weight. Like I thought it was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was like.
Apparently, this is an extremely malleable
very
term that
bad
people can
name.
invest a lot of emotional angst in.
It's also the fact that they're calling it esports gym. It's not this is an esports gym. It's that is the name. Like maybe it's the translation or something, but like the terrible name. Like I don't know. Like
other than the name,
gym.
Cool.
But it's just a LAN center, right? How is this different from a Helix or a, you know, like
there's coaching.
Yeah.
I guess
seems less targeted at community and like social and tournaments and like way more of like a, you know, you go there with your coach and you plug in and you're
You
like
get better.
in the zone. I don't know. That's the perception I have, I guess.
William, you know, we've often talked on the podcast about Japan being a little bit behind on the esports curve. Is this, you know, like,
yeah,
does this move the needle for you at all, or
no? I mean, I have massive concerns about Japan's adoption in esports. They're just there are so many reasons why they should be such a powerhouse country, but they're not really a strong global factor. You know, you don't really see, like, it's just, there's a lot that needs to change domestically there. And this feels to me like a product for a more mature market, right? Like a more mature, and you know, the things that sort of work in Japan are like Monster Hunter cafes, right? Where people can like get together and have a coffee and play Monster Hunter, right? They tend to be more these sort of social post-work experiences. Not like this. This feels to me a little mistargeted, would be my opinion on it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm out of the loop. Maybe Japanese esports has come a long way since the last time I looked at the market more seriously, but I don't think so. And I think this is the sort of product that would make a lot more sense in like a Korea, but in a Japan, it feels early to me. That being said, Japan has a great history of, you know, trying interesting things, right? Like they've innovated a lot of stuff in the space, and we've actually had a couple news announcements of sort of these, I hesitate to call them gimmicks, but kind of like new spins on an old model in esports coming out in Japan over the last year on the podcast. So let's add this to the list and hope one of them works, because it would be great for Japan to be leading a big innovation in the space.
Yeah, Carlito brings up, I think, a good point, which is I prefer the term Performance Institute, just like what the UFC has. I think that would have been a much more accurate name here, right? I think that at least it's much clearer what they're actually doing. Because, Lindsay, now that you've put this in my head, esports gym, like a place where you could go like play Beat Saber and lose weight, to me that's like esports gym.
So nobody went to the other thing I had thought, which was this was like a giant Pokemon collaboration with like the gym trainers, and that was like my biggest hope.
That was kind of the first thing I thought as well.
I was like, that would be so awesome if it's like Rock Gym and Cerulean City, and like I was like, sign me up. It's like the ultimate, like, it's like the ultimate theme park, basically.
Let's just say the name.
Try this on for size. Esports Dojo. Esports Dojo, Lindsay. What do you think?
That's better. But the name.
Jeff the Dojo Cohen.
Oh God. I just had so many more hopes and dreams when I read Japan opening an esports gym. I mean, there are so many other directions that could have gone. That would have been fun. Also required a lot more money, so I understand, but a little bit of a letdown.
I missed this one. It's Pathfinder says, I mean, I'd pay $50 an hour for golf lessons. Yeah, I don't think the pricing here was out of whack, right? They had like monthly memberships at $50 a month. Like the pricing totally seems in line and like affordable. Like it's more just, is there a market for this in Japan? A, and B, the name is just confusing in terms of what you actually get there. By the way, Jeff, for you, I missed this comment from Josh. I think it was when I had double. How is it not Jeff the process, Cohen? You even have a built-in tagline, trust the process.
It's pretty good. It does. Josh. Also, the P's, the prophet, the professor, the process, the boss, POS. It's in the running.
It's in the running. Chris says, Japan is quietly making moves in Japan CJZU, which is the Japan Esports Union. Yeah, I think, Chris, that we've seen like occasional news stories and efforts out of Japan, and there's, the government has committed to doing more there. I still think it holds true that they are behind countries, obviously behind countries like Korea, but in general have not welcomed esports with open arms in the same way as other countries in the region. Even though there is tremendous gaming culture there, that's kind of the interesting dynamic. Guys, let's move on. Would you pay for an esports gym, Lindsay? Would you buy a membership here?
That might be the only way I get over my mortal fear of playing games that I'm bad at.
There you go. All right, let's talk about Bitcraft. Actually, no, let's talk about MoviePass. This is an interesting one.
Too interesting.
Yeah, no, this one was interesting because it plays to some of the infrastructure things that I like spending time looking at. And here the headline from TechCrunch was, MoviePass co-founders Pre-Show Interactive raises $3 million to expand into gaming. And what Pre-Show Interactive does is it allows gamers to earn in-game currency in exchange for watching ads. So that's something that's not new, like mobile games do this a lot, but they're trying to bring it essentially to PCs and consoles, where one of the tests that they did was providing users with free movie tickets, for example, in exchange for ads. This is how sort of the MoviePass CEO got involved here, right? That was the thinking and the process that got him involved. And so the idea is to bring this concept to what they call 4 categories: movies, gaming, subscription, streaming, and video on demand, where you embed this technology, you connect your in-game account, and depending how many ads you watch, you earn more in-game currency. Does anyone see this as potentially one way of making in-game ads more acceptable in places that they previously might have been shunned, like PC especially, where I think people look at in-game ads as offensive? versus mobile, where it is already widely accepted. William, you're giving me a face. Like, do you think it's more widely accepted on PC than I'm giving it credit?
No, I don't.
Oh.
No, I think people don't like ads at all. I think you've seen massive backlash to any games that try to even do light ad integration, even when it's somewhat topical to the games themselves. Like it's a more realistic game doing it. Yeah, I don't know. My gut is I just don't like this, just because this is sort of the same problem that I think dogged Movie Pass, right? And maybe this is a little unfair. And Jeff, you probably know more about Movie Pass than me, so feel free to correct me if I'm incorrectly categorizing the service. But Movie Pass sounds like this great idea, right? Like if I pitch you Movie Pass, I'm like, okay, here's the deal, right? You pay this low fee and you get unlimited movies. You go see as many movies as you want. Isn't that amazing? Wouldn't you sign up for that? And then you're like, yes, that fee is so low. It's $20 a month. A movie's already $10. Plus there's discounts on popcorn. Yeah, like, oh my God, 2 movies a month, I'm there, right? Sounds like great service. Until you realize the problem is it's just thrown away money, right? Because the people who would buy a Movie Pass are hardcore moviegoers who are going to see all the new releases, and their bread and butter benefits. And then the people like me who maybe go see one movie when it's saying I really want to see every so often are going to have no interest in that service. So Movie Pass just doesn't work because it's not a tool to get people to go see more movies. It's a discount given to aggressive shoppers. And so basically, like, the problem with Movie Pass is it has a great pitch, but the underlying economics just don't work. And this is a long way of saying my suspicion is this will be the same thing here. And here's why. It'll be a little bit different, but here's why, right? How many ads are you going to have to watch to earn a skin in League of Legends, right, guys? Just like, honestly, how many? That thing retails for $10. You know, you do the math. That is a ton of ads. I think this is the sort of thing that sounds like it is
like a $10 CPM, just to be clear. You'd have to watch 1,000 ads.
Well, that's sort of the point I'm making. Like, this is one of those things that sounds amazing. Wait, I just watch some ads and I get news. I love new stuff in my games, and I'm willing to tough out 3 or 4 ads, you know, commercial Super Bowl. I watch all the ads in Super Bowl all the time. This is great. But if you actually look at it, you're like, you know, like, you're either never going to get something useful for your time because the cost per an ad impression is just so low that the payment you're earning is so minuscule. Or what's worse is the service is going to be subsidized in the beginning. So you're going to feel like, oh, I watched 15 ads. This is great. But there's no legs in the service because the underlying model still doesn't hold. And that's my gut here is these, like, there is no business right now. Let me put it this way. I am not aware of a business where I am just paid to watch ads all day, right? Like, that's not a business. And if that were a business, maybe I would think you could do more with that. But there's probably a reason for that. It's because actually, like, the value I get by watching an ad is relatively low, particularly, by the way, to make things worse, when it's an opt-in scenario, because people who are opting into ads are oftentimes people who are more price sensitive, maybe not the people you want to be trying to reach with advertising, right?
William, I thought you were going to go somewhere. I love that. Like, such a smart insight. But where I thought you were going to even take this one step further, as per your Movie Pass analogy, was that the people who are willing to watch the ads to get the in-game currency probably would have been buyers of in-game currency to begin with. And right, so you're potentially losing whales to who may have otherwise just spent like cold hard currency up front.
Oh, that's even more explicit, which is sort of worse, right? Like, assuming the dream scenario where this model actually works, that there is a way of squaring the circle and the ads pay enough to get you stuff. The people who play the games enough to see the ads are the whales that the publishers don't want to send anywhere else. Yeah, this is again, I go back to, I kind of have a grudge against Movie Pass, and I'm sorry. Like, I just, it's one of those things that drives me crazy because it's a great pitch until you think about it. And it's such a good pitch, you don't want to think about it, right? Like, you don't, because it just sounds so great. A pass to go see them, and it's the same thing happening here. So no, you have to think a little more deeply, and I don't see this being a model that can work economically.
Lindsay, Jeff, I don't know if you guys had thoughts on this.
Well, since I play so many mobile games and do watch the ads to get rewards, I thought that I would be more excited about this. But the problem is, usually when I'm playing mobile games, I'm also doing something else. people who are sitting at a PC to game, they're not usually doing anything else. So I don't care about putting on a 30-second ad because then I'll just do the other thing that I'm doing and it doesn't matter. So this, it sounds, in theory, I was excited at first about the idea of jumping from putting this from mobile onto other gaming platforms because it works so well in mobile. But the reason why it works so well in mobile is because mobile typically doesn't require 100% attention or focus, whereas most other games, they require exactly that. And in that case, ads are just a nuisance.
Well, that's another terrifying thing about the mobile ad market you pointed out here is basically saying I don't really have to watch the ads on mobile because I can be doing something.
I mean, we
Also
could
spend
take that
$0 on
argument
any game.
very far. When was the last time anyone didn't click skip ad on YouTube the second it came up?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's
But conversely, I have bought stuff on Instagram more than once, and I'm like the least. The only thing I buy online is books, basically. But I've bought clothing on Instagram and shoes on Instagram like 3 or 4 times, and I probably buy shit online 10 times a year. So like, that's I don't know.
And I have seen ads on YouTube that have then like piqued my interest for other things. Like usually, actually, funnily enough, movie ads on YouTube, like the trailer previews. I'm like, oh, that one's coming out. I'll learn more about that, you know. But yeah, but anyway, it's actually really interesting, and it also kind of makes another point, which is like in the market where this works, Lindsay, you're like, because you're basically saying it's a forget market, like this is going to be another degradation for the publishers, because basically what it's saying is these ads are going to play for a little, maybe you should get up and get a coffee. And that's the last thing game makers want to do, is give you reasons to stop playing the game and step away, you know?
But just to play devil's advocate, I mean, if games are going more free to play, you're going to have like 90 to 95% of your players basically freeloading, right? And you're only monetizing 5%. So all of the things you mentioned are certainly challenges, but that opportunity of monetizing your 95% of your players is a pretty massive opportunity. So like, there are ways you can get around the things you said. Like, you have to be careful about how you're balancing the economy, and you're not basically creating hyperinflation in your game economy. But like, you could create a cheaper, like shittier SKU basically that you can only get from ads, but it's still better than nothing for people who maybe aren't ever going to spend.
That's actually not a bad idea, Jeff. You're talking about basically, but like, I actually hear what you're saying, and I actually think it's really smart. You're essentially saying that you're assuming that this needs to be a cannibalistic offering, right? When in reality, if this is an incremental offering designed to serve an ad of like a freemium user base, then it's fine, because your whales still have to buy the gold skins for $99. Right. But they're also probably going to maybe try to watch to get the, you know, the blue skin that nobody really cares about.
You guys obviously highlighted the risk. It's like, if done well, this could be, you know, a massive opportunity for free to play games. There's also ad SKUs where, like, you guys were talking about how, you know, these ads are useless, and you'd have to watch 1,000 ads for it to be $10. Like, there are certain ad SKUs, like I think they're called offer walls, that a lot of times you see in mobile games, where it's like, in order to get the reward, you actually have to do something. So it's like, sign up for Netflix and get 10,000 gold. So, okay, I was going to sign up for Netflix anyway, I'll do it. Or like, that actually seems interesting, I'll do it, and I'll get my $10 skin. So like, there are ways that you can get more CPM. You know,
the problem with this logic, though, again, this is what take under the hood is, let's go through both scenarios. So one, they make a new skin, that they make a new SKU that specifically, I love the use of SKU here, by the way, though, it's great. Like, they make a new SKU that's specifically to support freemium ads. Let me ask you, does every mobile game, does every video game just have unlimited content pipelines, and they're not struggling to fill out their updates? Like, the reality is, if you're making a freemium SKU, you're not making a premium SKU, right? And, you know, it's true, Paul. Like, it's true, right? Like, there's like, if you're going to do a freemium SKU, you're taking resources from what could be a premium SKU. So there's an allocation problem there.
True.
But if you've already saturated demand for the premium SKU, you can make another freemium SKU, right? It costs the same amount to make. The point, if you know, just because you're selling 1,000 premium SKUs for $10, but you can only, you know, you're going to need 10,000 people to watch 3 advertisements to get, you know, to sell the 10,000. You still can get, the revenue can be the same. It's
what do they call it? Perfect price discrimination, right? Like, where you have something to offer every customer at every level.
It's not easy. We've highlighted the problems, but like, it is, it's interesting. Like, it's way better.
It's going to take a publisher. I think what's shown here Jeff, it's interesting. Is this going to take a publisher that aggressively wants to monetize through ads and is willing to design their game to monetize through ads? And I guess what I would say today is I don't see that in any of the premium games houses, right? It's a mobile exclusive point. Like the last thing like you can see Activision Blizzard announcing, and maybe I'll be wrong, and next BlizzCon there'll be Diablo 4, but like no one's talking about how their next generation game development plans include integrating ads in the ground up experience, right? You know, like it's just, I don't think it's where publishers are strategically now.
Just to play devil's advocate on that, there's no, I don't think that should be my nickname, Jeff Devil's Advocate Cohen, actually. But I don't think we're necessarily thinking about it exactly correct. Like it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm playing Diablo 4, and then all of a sudden in the middle of my game, like massive advertisement pops up. You can get an email in the middle of the day that says, hey, take this survey and click through this, 30-second ad, and you get into your BattleNet account, you get $10 that you can then use later. So like there's ways to make it, to make the engagement happen asynchronously, not, during the actual gameplay, that I think can be creatively done.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one point that you guys have alluded to, which is the client for this company specifically that we're talking about. It's not the end user, it's not the gamer, right? They have to convince the developers to integrate this, and I think that's a big hurdle. I think I agree with William there that I don't think a lot of publishers are going to be running at this because there's always fear of the backlash, right? That I think they will always worry, unless this company gets into the business of prepaying, right? Like paying developers, get some kind of guarantees or upfront or something. Maybe you get, you get some traction, but I think the sales cycle here is going to be very long because you have to be integrated into the game. And I think the hurdle is large.
I just also think the gaming market is just so competitive. It's an attention-based market, right? Like it's just, the reality is like there could have been ads on loading screens for the last 10 years, right? Like people have had that idea and it hasn't happened for a reason. And that's the lowest hanging use case for all of this, right? Like no one likes the in-game tooltips on loading screens. I'm telling you right now. Does anyone like those in-game tool scripts on loading screens? Would anyone prefer something else there? I might even prefer an ad because at least it's different. I've read all the in-game tooltips, right?
My understanding of the mobile market is like people like ads. Like people actually don't mind when they're offered ads as rather than spending in-game currency. So your point is, all of your points are still valid about, not screwing up your in-game economy. But like, I don't think it's as simple as like ads bad, like can't be in games. Like, I think that model will work, but at some point it's also like microtransactions, loot boxes are bad. Like the growth is going to slow in those, and you're going to have to get your ARPU somewhere else. And like advertisers is a good place to get it.
The only thing I'll add, and then I think we should probably move on because we've kind of debated this to quite pretty far, but like it is interesting to think about how we have accepted ads in esports broadcasts, right? And on Twitch and on the, like, no one is upset when their Twitch stream is interrupted with a Twitch ad. It's a broad, like in some sense that has broken a wall of showing that ads can give alongside games. I wonder if that, or ads can live alongside games. I wonder if that makes it just a little bit easier for publishers to visit it now because we're used to seeing ads in a gaming context. I don't know. It's just a small thought.
The one other thing I keep thinking about is that a lot of the larger freemium models do rely on network effects. And if you do something to upset that audience and there's another freemium model available that doesn't have advertising, and you lose a large portion of that customer base, that's a huge problem as well. So there's going to obviously, as with everything, there's going to be right and wrong ways of doing this. The freemium model just relies a lot on retention right now, and I don't know that it's worth taking the risk quite yet.
Yeah. Guys, I just want to catch up on these comments. Tess says, having Movie Pass was the best 2 months of my life.
I'm so happy for you, Tess.
Tess, let's hope this company lasts longer than 2 months.
But Tess, like, why was it? Because you saved a ton of money, right? Like, that is... I mean, honestly, that's what it was. That's
and Chris says, Epic monetized 7%. Clearly, the bar is low. Also true. Julia says the ad algorithms have gotten so smart and specific on certain platforms that I've actually started paying attention to the ads. Well, Julia, they're listening to everything you're saying, so they know what you want, fortunately or unfortunately. But that's interesting that you pay more attention to them.
Julia brings up a good point. This could be our last point on it. I'll have to have the last word. But like we all seem to be talking about advertising as a distraction and something interrupting the game. I think you need to change the mindset and say it's a choice. It's, hey, do I want to buy this gold sword or do I want to watch an ad to get the gold sword? So you don't have to watch the ad. It's a choice. And when you frame it that way, I think gamers probably aren't as upset about it. Now you still have to balance the economy and everything we said, but like it's a
I
choice
don't know
and
if it works that way, Jeff, because that's like the old argument of like, well, you can earn the item by playing or you can buy it in the store. You know, like gamers recognize when the choice is effectively a false choice, right? And really,
in this case?
What?
How is it a false
Paying
choice
to
in
get
this
ahead.
case?
You know that the
You either pay to do it or you
like
watch the ad or you don't
the
get the
most
item. I don't know.
downvoted thing on Reddit of all time was when EA talked about a basically pay to win game. Like it's a finicky bunch of users out there.
I'm not talking about pay to win.
No, I know, but pay to get an item is kind of the same thing. Like,
Yeah, that's sort of the point I'm making is that in all those, you know, like Reddit downvote, the gamers had a choice. They could pay for the thing or they could play 30 hours and unlock it. Like, it's the same choice here. They're asking you to make a decision, money or time. You can spend time to watch the ad or you can spend money to get the result of watching the ad. So you think
money or nothing is better than money or time or nothing?
I think you have to be very careful how you present these things to consumers, and the choice you presented isn't really perceived by consumers as a choice. I agree. You're right. Like it's a better world to have the choice at all, right? Because there's another world where you don't get anything. They don't make the thing. There's nothing to buy, period. That's a worse world. You don't even have the choice, right? But remember that, you know, I mean, I almost wonder if this is like, you know, basic economics, right? But like, remember that there's an opportunity cost that contextualizes your choice. And in this case, the opportunity cost can really upset people. So,
Chris says, Jeff, late stage capitalism Cohen with the we like ads talk.
I love you. Like, it's a choice if they watch the ads.
It is. I mean, if you come to a thing, hey, I want this item. Oh man, I don't have $10 in my wallet. Oh, I can either not eat dinner tonight or I can watch an advertisement. Like,
so Jeff, I'm going to invite you.
That to me seems like a pretty good choice.
I'm going to invite you over to my house. And this is how it's going to work. I'm going to have you over for dinner and you're going to sit down and I'm going to say, okay, Jeff, for our first course, you have a choice. You can watch this 5-minute ad for the Book of Esports and the Business of Esports podcast, or you can pay me $5 for your appetizer. Like, it doesn't feel good because either way you're asking.
Well, if you were going to, if I came to your house and you were going to charge me for dinner, I wouldn't feel great about it, period. But like,
but the point I'm making is by your argument, it's a choice, right? Like I gave you, this is why it's a false choice, right? Like it's a choice. You cannot eat, Jeff. You cannot eat. You came to my house. I'm a great conversationalist, right? Like,
all right, guys. All right. Let's move on. We have 2 fun stories left. Before we get to those, I just had 2 quick words. Did you guys know that esports fans say they're 3 times more likely to engage with tailored advertising than soccer fans? Or that hardcore gamers in the US are 22% more likely to use ad blockers? These insights are pulled from YouGov profiles, the most complete and granular data set for understanding what the world thinks and does. Go check out yougov.com/gaming-esports for free esports and gaming reports. You guys know the Business of Esports is supported by YouGov. They're an international research firm. They're the best in the business. They supply the best data on gamers, games, and esports fans around the world. Do me a favor, do us a favor. Go check them out, yougov.com/gaming-esports. I will put the link in the chat for everybody to go check it out. Okay, we've got 2 fun stories here, guys, that I want to get to, which is...
Wait, are we not supposed to talk about the YouGov story? I thought that was...
I think we're going to do it like every other week. I'm not sure yet. It's in progress here. It's a work in progress.
In beta.
All right. let's this one. I have two fun stories for you guys. A little more lighthearted here. The first is gaming Twitter explodes after LeBron James asks for gaming chair recommendations. And so basically, LeBron James, NBA superstar and international celebrity, went and asked Twitter for gaming chair recommendations, and big streamers, like specifically Tim the Tatman, actually replied. So LeBron said, "Who makes the best, most comfortable gaming chair? I need one for myself." And Tim the Tatman came through with Herman Miller M-Body Gaming Chair Trust. By the way, which you can see right here, we are not sponsored by Herman Miller, but we should because I own so much of their product. One of these examples of pop culture, traditional sports, intersecting with gaming. Is anyone surprised that LeBron tweeted out looking for a gaming chair recommendation, though? Like, does he not have people for this?
I mean, is it the late stage capitalist in me?
Clan.
Like, is there any chance this isn't an advertisement? Like, is there any chance?
Do you think it's like paid
I think
ad?
100%. 100%. Like, I feel like this is
That's true. Do you think it was like
the next tweet? Like, hey, I decided to get this chair. Like, it's really awesome. Here's a picture of me in this chair. Hashtag ad. Like,
it's true. Like the only place he can go for advice is Twitter. Like, that's where he's going to get the best advice. Like, he's really, it's just such a burning question. I better tweet it out to my millions of fans.
But
you're right. You're right, Jeff.
He doesn't do anything unless it's planned and has an agenda. Like, LeBron James, in the midst of, he's battling back from an injury in the midst of a playoff chase, like literally late stage in his career, like trying to win another ring, catch Michael Jordan. Yeah, what's this best gaming chair? Like,
really weighing on me. I want to see. I want to like have like 10,000 comments I can scroll through for like a day to find the right one. Also, I don't have a lot of money, so I can't afford to buy all the different chairs and try them and then just see which one works for me best. No, I'm just gonna buy the one.
Yeah, this is an advertisement.
Well, so Lindsay brings up a great point, which is his son is part of FaZe Clan, right? Shouldn't it have been an easy phone call to FaZe to say, hey, like whoever your chair guy is, like hook me up? You would think.
Because it's an advertisement.
How do you think this whole thing came about?
But if it was an ad, I like
this collaboration with LeBron and Bronny, and now Bronny's going to respond and say, "Oh, this is the chair we use at FaZe," and then they're going to stream about it. And then LeBron, when he retires, is going to join FaZe Clan.
This is so depressing. What if it's just? What if
but
it's
don't
just
they have
a
to put
36-year-old man asking for a chair?
But doesn't he have to put hashtag ad or something? Like, isn't there?
But he hasn't mentioned a product. When he mentions a product, why would he have to put a hashtag ad now? He's asking him, what's the best gaming chair?
Okay, but if he's just pushing a gaming chair, why not push the gaming chair? Why? Like, let's say I'm Herman Miller and I'm doing this sponsorship.
If LeBron just says, I like Herman Miller chairs, it gets some attention. But right now, we're talking about it. And next week, when he says, oh, I did find the best chair, it's Herman Miller.
Yeah, but a bunch of chair companies got free publicity. Because he has all these mentions in his tweet of like, hey, go buy, whatever. Or a Roxy.
Yeah, but is that going to matter as much as the ultimate endorsement that's coming?
Exactly. True.
And like also like you have to. It's not like this guy and gaming chairs are synonymous, right? Like you have to ease into the conversation. And part of, I think somebody told me, a secret in social media is to look like you're reacting to other things. Like you never really want to be a person who's starting a conversation. You want to be a person who's continuing a conversation. And this is creating a conversation thread that then he can continue from with the recommendation, which feels natural and organic and feels way less advertising, even if it's an ad, than just coming out and being like, Herman Miller, it's what I use. Go for it, guys.
Greg says FaZe has Vertigear chairs. M-Body is better. M-Body's the best, which is what Tim the Tatman told him. And that was the main tweet, right? Like that's what almost everyone saw. LeBron, Tim the Tatman. If it's not Herman Miller doing this ad, if it is an ad, then Herman Miller got a lot of free publicity. Let's put it that way. Like lots. This is LeBron's millions and millions of followers who all now know Herman Miller exists. Like up until I would say 3 years ago, like I've always been a buyer of Herman Miller chairs in the tech startup world. Aarons were always like the quintessential startup chair. if you were funded at least. But like in circles outside of that, it wasn't a known brand. Like now you have LeBron and Tim the Tatman talking about it. If it's not them, this was a lot of free publicity. And I'm not convinced it's an ad. I agree it could be. I like that idea. The capitalist in me likes this idea. But to Lindsay's point, maybe he's just a 36-year-old man who needs a gaming chair. No.
He just doesn't do a lot of ads. That's why I would find it puzzling.
LeBron
This is
James
the
doesn't do a lot
one.
of ads.
He does a lot of like TV commercials and stuff, but his social media is largely
He literally
ad-free.
created a whole movie that's basically an advertisement. Like,
Yeah, exactly. He could have, gone on a Herman Miller commercial or something like really high impact that
All right,
listen,
guys.
you of all people- you
Yeah,
of all
go
people
for
who love social media gimmicks and companies doing creative things, like I hope it's an ad. It's a really creative, cool way to do it. I think maybe it's not. We'll find out.
All right, guys, let's move on here. This is another kind of fun story. This one, the headline: Bill Maher draws criticism after saying Twitch is a waste of time. Okay, and specifically, he calls out. He says, "You think I'm out of it because I'm not on Twitch? Well, maybe I get Twitch, but I just think that people watching other people play video games is a waste of effing time."
Okay, I have an extremely topical.
I hate
and
to think what he
relevant-
thinks about live
Lindsay,
stream
go ahead.
Business of
Lindsay, go
Esports
ahead.
podcasts. Sorry.
Yeah, really. Extremely topical and relevant self-promotion to throw in here that I just got an op-ed published in a local Virginia newspaper, the Roanoke Times, and it was all about how sports betting and esports betting by extension is good. It's a good thing to happen. It's a good way for people to engage with their interests, and it brings the state revenue. And the first comment was like, we might as well also legalize hoe houses then. So I think there's still some perception issues with gaming.
Okay.
That is particularly with the older generations that Bill Maher might be falling victim to. And I just can't wait for those to go away.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general reaction was like it was the okay boomer moment. Does anyone here? So let me just read Julia's comment. She says, "I'll fight Bill Maher personally for saying that." Does anyone here think that? Let me try and ask this in the best. And obviously, I feel like there's value in people watching other people play video games, right? Like, I think no one is questioning that. But like, does he make a point that I'm going to stretch Bill Maher? Like, I'm going to give him all the benefit of the doubt here, that he's just such a visionary that he sees the future of gaming and gaming media not being so much about people watching people playing games in the way it is today. And this will somehow evolve and look different and feel different. I don't know, right? Is there any way we can give him some?
No, that's what it was. Yeah, we can stop. We were wrong.
He's just meta that he really gets it, that he's like, yeah, in the future, we're going to be watching, it's going to be more like professional esports. It's not going to be, amateur live streamers because the quality of content's just not as good and the long tail isn't that exciting.
To be fair to Bill Maher, he's sort of correct in the sense that today on Twitch, no one's really watching anyone playing video games anymore. Everyone's watching people in hot tubs. So just to give him some credit.
Something tells me if Bill Maher knew about the hot tub meta, he'd be more interested in Twitch. And people of his ilk would feel the same way.
So everyone thinks Bill Maher is out to lunch on this.
Well, it's just a silly argument because you could say the exact same thing. Oh, idiots watching people play football on Sunday. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah,
like,
who wants to see lacrosse?
Right. Like, if your argument is you shouldn't watch any.
Well, I had to watch half a basketball game, and that is how I feel about it.
I mean, if that's your argument, then yeah, you can make it fine. If that's your blanket argument, like no sports, no competition, like no TV shows, like. Yeah, I mean, you could make that argument, but you're going to have a very boring existence if, you cut all your entertainment back to you physically doing it yourself. You just run and work out all the time. Like, what are you going to do?
All right, guys, let's finish this up. Unless anyone has any other thoughts on that, let's get to everyone's favorite segment. What are we playing this week? Lindsay, go ahead.
Alas, I did not have time to explore Super Mario Online. However, I played Mario Kart. Huge difference in my week.
You are officially more handy with the Switch than Tim Sweeney.
Yes. Yeah, that was funny but sad. I can't imagine being in front of a courtroom though in an extremely high stakes case and someone just handing me a Switch. I feel like I'd be like, oh, I don't know.
It's true. Maybe the pressure got to him. Jeff?
Oh wow, I'm in the top screen now. I did not play anything this week, but I watched some advertisements, so I've got a lot of currency when I do log in. I watched 5 hours of ads, this week. Can't wait.
William?
Not much. I had a super busy week, but Heroes of the Storm. Still play it. Still love it. Yeah.
No one tried the new Apex mode? It's Pathfinder even wants to know. Paul,
yeah, I want to know what you
the
think about it.
I mean, can we just I just want to have a bit of a rant on this. You guys, so first of all, they broke the concurrent player record on Steam. I mentioned this on the podcast. So clearly Apex is seeing a resurgence as a consequence of this game mode. And I think it's well deserved because Apex has done so many things so right. The movement, the gunplay, like it's probably the best shooter out there. What's interesting is how bad the launch was. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the servers were crashing. People weren't able to get into games. There were long queue times. Like some people didn't, like the menu screen didn't even load. You would think this is an EA AAA title launching a new game mode. You know there's going to be lots of excitement. How do you mess that up?
But like, why does it matter? Like, I feel like this is such like a pet peeve of mine when people get upset about this because it's like, does it really matter? You know what I mean? Like, it's like a mistake, but like, it's not easy to run these networks. Like, there are times when you're at like AWS goes down like once a month. You know what I mean?
But this is not an excuse, Jeff.
No, it's not an excuse, but like, I feel
it's
like
saying I'm Tesla. I'm gonna come out with a new car, but on release day, right? The steering's only going to work half the time. Good luck. Like,
I wouldn't quite.
Well, it's hard to make cars.
I wouldn't quite take it to that, far of a thing. But it's like saying, okay, when you when you get the new iOS, like there might be some bugs, and then 2 days later they give you another update that like fixes whatever bug. Like these launches are hard, so it's bad. But I feel like we as an industry should be over like shaming companies when like there's a it's one, if the game is bad, it's completely a mess, then yeah, that's a problem. But like the servers went down, like that, they probably underestimated the demand or something. Like it happens, okay. Right?
No, it doesn't. As an old school tech guy,
clearly it does.
People are too because of attitudes like this. It's like, well, it's okay, we'll just fix it after. To me, this is the worst attitude in software engineering at all. Like there's this sort of philosophy that it's okay if it's buggy. We'll just fix it after. It's okay if the servers crash. We'll just restart them. It's okay, right? When there are technologies, there are solutions, believe it or not, to meet demand that is unexpected. Like, had they planned this properly and actually put effort into it, it just seems always kind of half-assed, especially given the size of EA, right? This is not like independent studio releases game and sees unexpected demand and they don't have, millions of dollars to just spin up new servers. But you're talking about EA. And so right. I don't think you can apologize there on their behalf.
I'm not apologizing. I'm just saying, like, it feels like at this point, like, we see this on, like, I would say most launches where, like, maybe it's not that they're not trying. It's just not that easy. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying it's easy, but companies the size of EA or Activision Blizzard or any of the very, very big ones should be able to make it so that doesn't happen, right? Again, I'm more understanding if it's a small shop. And I think as gamers, we should not be understanding of this, right? Like if you're paying, you're spending money on the game, you're playing their game, you're buying skins, like not knowing, like not being able to have access to the game and not knowing the demand or the game being buggy, I think is unacceptable. Anyways, my little rant on that. But to answer its Pathfinder's question, I think the game mode is great, and it's great for the game. It highlights all the great things about Apex, primarily the movement, which Apex does better than any other game. And so I think it will be around for a while. I think you're going to see Apex see a huge resurgence, big comeback. Not that it ever went away, but I also find it interesting that Apex and Fortnite seem to be on different trajectories right now. I'm sure Fortnite's still making more money, but the trajectories are going in different directions, I think. So that's my view in a nutshell. Guys, that wraps up this week's episode. William, Jeff, Lindsay, thank you as always. All of you guys who showed up, thank you guys as always. Please spread the word about the live stream. We love having you here. We love answering questions, interacting with you guys, discussing these topics. Also, if you haven't already, if you bought the Book of Esports, William's amazing book on the industry. If you haven't bought it, go buy it. If you've bought it, go leave a review on Amazon. Tell William how much you love the book because it is amazing. Also, we sell a bunch of like Business of Esports merch. I'm wearing some of it on businessofesports.shop. It's Pathfinder says, go buy socks. Yeah, go buy some socks. They're actually really cool socks. It's not like a big money maker. It's just we love for you guys to represent and show Business of Esports off. We appreciate it as always. And stay tuned for the podcast tomorrow. Go follow us on socials at Biz Esports everywhere. And as always, we will see you guys next week.